You're listening to The Unstoppables, where each week we show you how to overcome obstacles and transform the sting of failure into the reward of growth. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and CEO, Bill Wooditch.
You work for your freedom. That's right. You work for your freedom. You've got to create those conditions that enable freedom. You know, we think about happiness, we think about family, we think about how can we be productive? Well, the only way is to work for your freedom. You see, to me, you're either an entrepreneur or you're an intrapreneur. An intrapreneur working inside of a company, working on your own platform, building the values, the skills, growing the confidence, learning to be competent in front of people. That's what you do to become unstoppable. This show is The Unstoppables. It's about those people who are resilient. That's just part of the game, is being resilient. They're resourceful. They have willpower. They're able to drive. But at some point, we all need those mentors that can help us shorten the distance from where we want to go and where we are right now. One such person is Walt Brown. Welcome to The Unstoppables.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Well, I get to read this, and in reading this, I'm trying to get my head around this because you've successfully turned around more than 150 companies by coaching the entrepreneur to focus on leadership and mentoring. Right there, I'm in awe because since 1993, I've tried to turn this company in different directions, and I'm still working on it. 150 companies on the two essentials, leadership and mentoring. So give me a 30,000-foot perspective on who Walt Brown is and how in the heck you did that.
Oh, gosh. So turn around. Let's make sure we don't understand. It's not like they're in a death spiral. They're just more stuck. If that kind of, they're not free. Love to kick off with the free, but and then the idea of an entrepreneur being internally in control of your future, and then the entrepreneur being out there, leadership and mentoring. Currently, my current definition of leadership is if you can create a future that's so clear that others will turn over part of or all of their future to you, you know you're leading. And so you're constantly having to mentor into that future. And, you know, if you do that really well, you can have a company with a bunch of entrepreneurs. They're all aligned to your entrepreneurial dream. That's sort of the good ticket.
And I think, and I learned that early, that it's not about my agenda, my mission statements, it's about their agenda and motive. And when I can align their agenda and motive with mine and mentor and create an environment that is free for them to learn and grow, then I'm going to be successful.
Right. Learn and grow, participate. Yep.
The majority of companies that were startups that you got involved with, and they went awry because they made some very questionable hiring decisions, and that detracted from the original mission. So we can talk about hiring because I have one thing that sticks in my head. I've learned this from a very, very sage CEO. He said, son, this is when I was very young. He said, you've got to hire slow and fire fast.
Yep.
I didn't do that. My payroll was bloated for a long time. So tell me what your thinking is, what your philosophy is around hiring.
Yeah, so we go to pretty much to the end. So I'm not going to give the whole story of all of these pieces, but and we're always on a journey, right? Have you listened or read to Malcolm Gladwell's latest book,
Yes.
Talking to Strangers?
Yes.
And
it's on my one of my assistant's desk.
right. I'm working through it, so I'm not finished with it yet. But he's really saying it's almost impossible for us to be able to read strangers.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when you're hiring someone, I used to think it was all about the interview questions and things, and really hiring correctly and then letting people go quickly is based on you being your entrepreneur and having your definition of what freedom looks like for you. You know, and I have a very codified methodology to understand what it is. But, you know, when you can describe this is the kind of place that you want to work every single day to the person you're interviewing, and then say, are you clear on what that looks like? And do you understand how we maintain that? And if they say yes, then you have this upfront agreement, this upfront promise that allows them to move into your organization and be part of it. And then also, if they aren't living up to those standards that you set for yourself, which are basically promises for everybody who joins your organization that you're going to keep, it allows you to make that much quicker decision of, I'm protecting this culture. I'm protecting these people I made a promise to. You don't fit, please leave. And it sounds kind of cold, but that's where people have problems. They let the group bloat, and they let the organization become split due to people.
And I think there's two forms of measurement there. The first one is the subjective, which is the human condition that we assess by how you move. Are you thinking? Are you able to move through the organization in a way that's PLU, people like us? And I think the other one is objective, right? But we really sometimes spend too much time trying to get to the objective form of measurement because people are learning what we do. So we're stuck. So the question for you is, I know my answer to this, but when they're in, you hire them, they're in. Don't you know right away if they're going to make it or not?
I think that most people have that sort of gene inside right off the bat. Right? But it's hard for us to make the hard decision. I think and I always say to my clients is, if we're having this conversation right now, you've already made a decision.
Yes. You know where I get screwed on that is I don't want my ego to be dented because we made a bad hire, so I'm trying to stick on a bad position, and money's just going out the door. So when you talk about being stuck, the first obstacle to stuck is the CEO most times, right?
Yep.
How would you unstick me?
Well, I have a very specific process that I follow that we're trying to help leadership, specifically the owner, get on the same page of describing their organization to what yes looks like, the 7 basic things. Bill, you want me to go through those? You can do it in less than a minute.
Yes.
So we would like to absolutely understand what yes means to belong in an organization, core values, attitudes, behaviors, what yes looks like to what we believe in, which means our why and our purpose, all that stuff, Simon Sinek, and also believing in our strategy and our tactics and our priorities. We would like for people to be able to understand and embrace and be able to say, I understand what I'm accountable for as it aligns to our strategy. I understand and embrace how I'm measured. I understand and embrace how I am heard, how I'm developed, and how I maintain balance. So it's belong, believe, accountable, measured, heard, developed, and balanced. And, we're getting the owner and the leadership team to get on the same page what that looks like. And then they basically make a promise to everybody that comes to the organization is, we want you to be able to say yes to these 7 things. And we have a very specific way we go about making sure you stay to yes. And, so you're constantly allowing the person to select in or select out of our organization that way, as opposed to kind of doing it for them as opposed to them, if that makes any sense. Flip that script.
No, and I want to reinforce that because what I just wrote down, but I think it's platinum, not gold, it's platinum, is you have a structure and you have a process.
Yes.
You have structure and process. And most companies, and I've been exposed to myriad companies. Over the years, it will boggle your mind. And most don't have a structure or a process.
Right. Yeah. So the structure is, these are the 7 questions. And then we have an operating system in place that we show them. This is something we're doing for you. We want you to be able to align to these 7 questions so you have the freedom in your life. And these are the tools we use that you're going to interact with that are going to help you stay on the same page. And you got to show that connection to them. And then when they see that, they're like, wow, I see the pattern. I'll follow that pattern.
So I'm listening. I'm intrigued. I know I need a structure and process. And some of the stuff that you're talking about right now is something that I think maybe would benefit me. So where could I find you?
Oh, me? I'm in terms of like website and stuff like that. That's what you're asking.
This is where you promote yourself.
Right. Thank you. Oh yeah. I'm all about help first guy. So it's a 4-letter URL. www.7q7p.com. So it's the numeral 7Q, 7 questions, and the numeral 7, and then P is in promises.com. That's pretty cool, right? 4-digit.
No, it's easy. A lot easier in mine. People can't spell my name, so I don't know where they go. What is the patient? You talk about a patient organization. Yeah. Define a patient organization.
Well, let's first there's a belief, and the belief is that an organization, a company is in essence a fiction, and that fiction is only given meaning and power by the people who buy into it. And if you got 100 people and 51 people buy into one vision and 49 buy into another vision, you've got 2 organizations. That makes sense. So we're trying to define what being
Total
part of this one team
total
organization
sense.
looks like.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, and then and then what we mean by patient is it's just like patience and perseverance and guts. Anybody who's started a company and has gone through the process of discovering and has been beaten up and run up their credit cards and has all the scars, you kind of get into this rhythm of actually being able to take the pain, and then you slow down and you start saying, do I take the shot? Do I take the shot? And everybody is free of fear. They really want to be in, and they're just, it's like patient, man. It's not all drama. It's drama-free stuff. Moxie, grit, guts, courage, wisdom, I go on.
What is the average employee tenure that most companies can expect?
Well, what is so I go to Gallup for all of this stuff. So I'm a trained Gallup guy from 2007. For some reason Gallup reached out to me, but what are they saying? It's like average across the whole country, like 3 years.
Yes.
And it depends on what the industry is, but think about that. 3 years, 33% of your workforce is turning over every 3 years, every year.
Yeah.
How do you scale that?
33% every year.
Yeah, it depends.
Hear that, Kels?
Are you seeing that, Bill?
Well, we take it as a personal indictment of our culture if someone leaves us, and I look at it that for the most part, the ones that have left, for the most part, are ones that we don't miss.
And there's a season and reason for everything. People come to your firm, they learn, they want to move on, and maybe there's not room for them to go. Well, stop holding them back from their future.
And we're champions of the person moving on beyond us if their expectation isn't met, and sometimes we push them to do it because they were capable of doing it on their own.
Right.
Doing it and starting their own business or going somewhere where they could expand to become a CEO or become. So we've actually encouraged and developed and moved on a 2 or 3 year arc to do that, and it's been great. We're still friends with those people.
Right, and a lot of times you can get even better talent in because they know there's kind of a lifespan of when they're going to be in here, and you give them a map where they're going. I look at the number of folks that have been with me over the years that are coming back now going, wow, Walt, I love those 3 years with you. It's just great.
Well, I like talking with you, man. So I can see how people can hang with you. I want to ask you this because this is the most important thing we do. We're big on teams.
Yep.
We're a team company. We're not a solopreneur company. The people that come here that have the solopreneur mentality, generally, it's antithetical to the culture, to our vision, it's called the Wooditch way. So tell me how you attract team players to your company.
Well, a lot of that is tied to the belong and believe type of world. Some companies don't want teams; they kind of want these solopreneur type pieces. So, being honest around defining whether you are a team company or not, right? And a lot of times that's going to be in the core values of collaboration, teamwork, that type of work, right? So, I don't know if I answered the question there, Bill, but first getting up front of who we are and how we're going to go about doing it. That's the belong and the believe. And then the next piece, which is, I don't think you're even aware of this. The next book that's coming out behind the patient organization is called Death of the Org Chart. And you're kind of going, Death of the Org Chart.
Death of the Org Chart. And this is somewhere, it wasn't the org chart. What are we doing next? The graph.
Organizational graph. Yeah.
See? I find just enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
So tell me about the first book.
So the first book was the patient organization, which
right.
is basically the psychology and the systemization of the 7 questions and the 7 promises. And then if you think of accountable, we go belong, believe, accountable, measured, heard. Well, accountable is that hinge question. And, nowadays, really all organizations are supposed to be running as teams, but we're really not clear what position we hold on different teams over time. And so you're talking about building out teams. It's a lot of the turnaround effort has really been anchored in sort of the cornerstone of really clear super organizational structure. Who is doing what, who's thinking about what's your domain and authority, why am I part of these teams? And so we're doing a lot of work down to the basic inventory building block around positions and roles. And I'm going a little bit long, but so we kind of get an idea of what this means. Hopefully I won't offend anybody, but a football analogy is there's a, you're on a team as a special teams player. That's like your job title, but you play a different position on the kickoff team and the punt receiving team and the kick receiving team and the extra point team. These are all different positions, and you might have a different coach, you might have a different mentor, you might be following different processes, and your goals and objectives are different, and you might be part of different meetings, and you have to have different skills to do these things. And so we're mapping it down to that individual level so the individual contributor can see exactly where they are as part of the team. Then you create a really great team. If those two different or not.
It sounds like you're breaking the old paradigm, the old archaic paradigm of putting people in boxes, and you're moving much more to what I think today is, which is fluid and flexible.
Yeah, exactly what it is. And we're moving. You still have a job that reports to somebody, but you have these different positions that attach and detach, based on the client you're working with. It's just, it all maps out.
In my initial assessment, I think you're a servant leader. Yeah, and I do think you're people first, and you're manifesting the people first mentality because you're not going to tell us where to find your first book. So I'm going to help you promote this, okay? Because I believe in you. I really love what you're doing here. So tell me where we can find the Patient Organization book.
It's just just Walt Brown as the author, and it's The Patient Organization. It'll come up on Amazon. It'll come up on Audible. It's all right there.
How do you measure how strong an organization is? And
we're doing a survey.
Mm-hmm.
We're surveying.
Taking the financial part of it out, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So do a survey.
Yeah. So are you familiar with like Gallup's 12 questions of employee engagement?
No, there's 12. I thought there was only 3. But go ahead. 12?
They have the Q12. And so Gallup's every 3 years, Gallup runs a survey of like the American workforce, and they come back and they can, through these same 12 questions, they can see where they have engaged, neutrally engaged, and disengaged people. And we're running the 7 question survey, which is basically the 12 boiled down. And we can see where they'll start on a relative scale in each one of these questions, and you'll start moving to the right, and it tracks the exact same results Gallup sees. So Gallup sees numbers like when you can move along that line, like 10% better customer retention, 20% better profits, 17% better sales, 52% lower safety instances. I mean, it's just like these statistics are just not mind-numbing, but it's like when you look at what the return on investment is of doing this hard work. So we measure. A lot of times we'll start with the survey to figure out where they're weak. We help them work, or they just use the survey to track how they're coming along. I don't know if that made sense or not, Bill. But
it does make sense.
Survey.
It makes sense.
It's kind of a net promoter score deal,
No, it makes sense. Have you ever read The Flight of the Buffalo?
Fire of the Buffalo?
The Flight of the Buffalo.
No, buffaloes fly.
Well, no. And that's the old leader that stays past midnight, right? The leader that's usually the entrepreneurial driven company that at a certain point reaches that point where they should have sold, don't sell, they hang on too long. And in Buffalo, the lead buffalo, the head buffalo, is the one that finds the water, finds the food. It moves the herd. It's not fungible. It doesn't change between other members. So once that head buffalo dies, the herd perishes with it.
Oh, I didn't know. They also go toward the storm, is what I've always heard.
Well, that's what I've done as the head buffalo, but for the most part. and now the end is near. But
I don't agree with that strategy. I'm like, find the current, go with the current. That's what I've learned.
But the book segues into the optimal way to perform, and that is like a flock of geese, where it's interchangeable in terms of leadership. And I think that's really, part of the essence of what I'm thinking about when we talk about your next book is more that fluid, flexible, because if we're going to be stuck here on my ideas, we're going to be stuck. If it's going to be about my vision, we're going to be myopic. So and if we don't collaborate and pull together, I'm going to wear myself out.
Exactly. And then you go into teams. So I talk about, you can lead for just a few seconds, like leadership's about.
Thank you.
I mean, right. What you want to do is, golly, think about when you've been with a great team and you create this vision for the future, and somebody aligns their vision to your future, and And next thing you know, they break through this next ceiling, and you had no idea it was there. You're like, oh gosh, thank you for taking me to that next spot.
Right.
And the buffalo, man, he can't see behind him. He can't, that's ugh. So what's the flight of the buffalo, man? What's the flight?
Well, you think about that in the title, because buffalo can't fly, but geese can. So you can only go so far as a buffalo. So if you really want to soar, you got to change your model, because the old model of it's going to be my way or the highway does not work, and hasn't worked for years. We're kidding ourselves.
Sir. Well, where the 7 questions came from was, I guess it was a client number 100 or so. And 5-6 years ago, people were complaining about millennials.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I actually don't believe the stereotype, and I don't see it going on in the organizations I'm working with. But they were packed with millennials. And I asked my clients for permission to engage with them in like focus group stuff. And that's where the 7 questions came from. They said, I know I belong and believe, and I'm accountable, measured, heard. I want to be here. And that's the whole idea. They're flying like geese, man, changing and taking the lead for a little bit and going around, all get together, land together. Yeah.
You're the second person. The first one is across the screen from you, who doesn't believe in stereotyping people. So I've been loath to stereotype millennials as a group and put them off in some distinct little category and subset. So I'm looking at people as people. And I think that the sticking point, you mentioned stuck up front, and the sticking point and the inability to change and grow is found in leadership. It's found by in the CEO, who were reluctant to change. We fear change as humans, and we don't want to change because we don't know. We don't know these people. We don't know what they want. There's a different way. It's a different approach, and we won't. Instead of maybe encouraging, embracing, and looking at that as a way of corporate culture, we're afraid of it.
Yeah,
and we lose them. We lose hearts and minds.
We lose hearts and minds, and this is the other side of it. Is in the book I talk about this. It's not my work, but what's his name? I think it's Daniel Kahneman. It talks about thinking fast, thinking slow, system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking, where humans are, when we're hit with something really difficult, we're apt to take the easy answer. And an easy answer is the stereotype. And we take something very complex and boil it down into like this, oh, well, that's that. And boy, when you get behind a CEO like who takes something super complex and boils it down into like one answer and is completely dogmatic about it, humans stop following. They're like, dude, you just can't even see the world for anything. I'm out of here. Nowadays,
that's a great book. I read it twice.
Yeah.
That speaks more to my comprehension ability than it does their writing skill. But Kahneman and Tversky came up with 2 things that I've really built a lot of podcasts off of. They found that people are change averse and we're risk averse. We don't want to risk things if we think we have something. We don't want to stick something out there and lose.
Yep.
And this just when you mentioned the word change, we're change averse. We don't like change. Therein lies the root of the problem of fear and sticking and doing things the way it's always been done. And there we go. Down. It's a treadmill.
Fear of loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear of loss, fear of change.
Yeah, and helping them see, hey, this is where we're going, and this is how you tie into it. So if we can break it down to a really low common denominator, like you still have your job. These are your 6 positions. We're adding this one. This position's going to Tommy. There's like, oh, I see how it fits, and it's just the change is hard.
I'm looking forward to this one. And I believe you'll give me this one. How do you define success, Walt Brown?
Me personally, just the number of people I've touched in a day. Certainly. So I turned 59. I turned 59 last week, and was by myself. I was doing a 2-day retreat with a client that up in the mountains. It was really cool. But they went home the night of, and I was staying in this hotel called Hotel Domestique, which is George Hincapie's hotel. I don't know if you're a cyclist or not, but George was Lance Armstrong's Hotel Domestique. And I'm sitting there, I'm taking an inventory, and I've got a fiscal inventory, and I got an inventory of people that I can change, and not change is the wrong word, but people that I've helped over the years. And it was a really cool inventory. But that's what I'm looking at. I'm counting in terms of improving people's lives. We only got a certain number of days on this earth, and you can't take what you store away anywhere with you. So you better leave what it is in the day, pay it forward type stuff.
Yeah,
that question?
You did. It's influence. And
Yeah.
to me, that is what gives me my kick is what have people taken from this place and what have they done with their lives? How have they
Yep.
created a better lifestyle? Because you know this, they have to do the work. I mean, I can't do the work for them.
True.
That's up to them. But their success is their success. But the foundation and the fundamentals that maybe we can inculcate here have given me the greatest joy. That's where my joy comes from.
And helping them realize that, somebody else's definition of success doesn't necessarily need to be their own. They need to define their own. I mean, right?
No, I'm huge on that. Because if you compare yourself by material, there's always someone that has more. It's a zero-sum game. You're always going to lose. I don't measure it by the material. That's not success.
Yeah, I keep score over there, but that's not how I measure success.
Yeah, I keep score over there too. The bank account gets a little lower as the toys grow. But
okay, I still a balance sheet, toys.
The other side of the coin, the other part of success that we've dealt with, because we move forward through this minefield that we've suffered our bruises, our cuts, dents to the ego, and we've had our victories and our losses. But what do you consider to be your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that failure?
The biggest impact for me was, this is super personal, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. I was fired by my best friend after selling 4 companies, went out and got a really good firm, started doing pretty much what I do now, got into the world of raising money and doing startups and raised a bunch of money and got into this company and was called in to turn it around and basically took a job. And anytime you turn a company around, if it's like private investment type stuff, you're not going to always get along really well with all the board members because you kind of have to take a stand on where you're trying to go. And this is true turnaround, just hemorrhaging money. And once I got it up and running, I was like, I need to hire a couple of these people. They're more technical than me. And the guy looks across the table and goes, well, we don't have room for you in the budget anymore. And so the failure is just over trusting somebody. It was tough. I was like a best friend for life. Don't talk to him anymore.
Off air, I'd probably debate that if that was a failure or not, but I would debate that with you off air because I think you're too hard on yourself. What is, if you could pick one, maybe that was it, but you could pick another. Then you could pick 2.
It was hard.
No, because it's an emotional sting. In the first place, the frustration comes from is expectation. So somehow your expectations were, this is a friend, this is someone I rely on. We have a mutual trust, and then that's personal disappointment. It's like marriage, and I don't know anything about the subject other than this. I coach people on one thing when they talk to me about relationships. You say marriage, you either it's a success or failure. I don't want to put it in a finite box of failure when another person has 50% of that control. I don't know if it's a personal failure. It's kind of how I look at it. That's just semantics maybe, but it helps me get through the day.
Yeah. What are some other failures?
Yeah, I know you got to think hard because you've been flying in this air of success. Kind of like me, I have a hard time thinking about failure.
Well, just, you hit it pretty well. As I look back on that distant moment of years ago now, I'm like, wow, that was a really great time in my life. I learned to tough avoid the future.
I wrote a book on failure. Fail more. So I encourage people to fail more.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing about writing the book, I'm not trying to be an ID10T, an idiot here. But the hardest thing for me was I didn't look at failure as some kind of final thud. I looked at it as this is part of the bargain that success requires. This is a disappointment. It's a setback. Hell, man, how do I get better to win next time? So it wasn't like Churchill would say, what was it? Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. I just never lost enthusiasm for the freaking game. It's just a game.
Right. And so this is kind of cool. So it kind of comes, so I'm a student of Dan Sullivan. That's probably why I'm brainwashed in this piece, but he talks about the 90-day world and the 25-year mindset. And he says, if you've got a 25-year mindset, then there's never any failure. It's only a learning moment as you look back in time.
You know what? That's a good perspective. And if I would have had you on the show or met you before, You could have probably made my book a #1. It was #4 on Wall Street Journal bestseller. I could have probably hit #1. That's some good stuff, right? No, that's some good stuff right there.
But that's the idea. So I have trouble right now looking back on failures.
Yeah.
Been a good dad, been a good son, and that type of stuff. But I don't have the house in Aspen. Failure.
I don't ski, so that really doesn't do it for me. 'Cause I don't ski. But what is your defining moment? What was the thing that changed the trajectory of your life?
I know exactly what this was. I'm sitting here right now with 2 wonderful daughters, married to a wife for 35 years, and in school, I was a snow ski team guy. And as opposed to going out to Colorado and becoming a ski bum, I decided to take a job with a CPA firm and marry my wife. That was a defining moment.
Great one.
I was like,
just think how much different it would have been, huh? You can't even imagine. Who knows how many different iterations of things. It's those seemingly at the time inconsequential choices that really make the biggest difference in our life.
That was the biggest. And then, but the rest of the thing, I've probably done everything like I wanted to do, kind of selfish with my days. But that was the defining moment. I made the right decision. Yes,
come back to that. Selfish with your days. And you've said a number of times, we have a finite, limited time here.
Yeah. Selfish
with your days. And that doesn't mean selfish in sharing, because that's quite the opposite.
Right.
But selfish in where you allot your time, because that is the one resource that we can't replenish, and that's time. And how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, what we're working on, what we're thinking. I wish I would have met you sooner. The book would have definitely been bigger. Let me ask this again. I know you're tough on self-promotion, but you got such great stuff. We need to get it out there. So where do we find you again? Wrap this for me.
Yep. So it's 7q7p.com. Everything's coming off of that right now.
7q7p.com. All right. We're at the end of the show. Unfortunately, we have to have another one at some point, but I want to ask you this one. You're going to write a paragraph about Walt Brown, something you could share for your daughters or for people that have been exposed to, that's people that could grow and learn from that one paragraph that you would write for them. What would that paragraph look like?
Currently, it's if you talk to your kids about work or talking to yourselves about work, run an inventory. Ask, is where I'm working really a place that I belong and believe, and it's clear what I'm accountable for, how I'm measured, heard, developed, and balanced. Pretty quick there, Bill, but do that inventory constantly and don't lock yourself into a corner. If you're not part of an organization, you don't buy in, stop wasting your time. Everybody else.
You were fantastic, right down to your North Carolina, which you went to school there. You're a Tar Heel, correct?
Correct.
You have a North Carolina blue shirt on. You're in North Carolina. You're living a life. You're living the dream. You got your stuff together. You know one thing, like I do, that you don't know. You're always questioning, trying to get better, taking inventory, and you are accountable to results, sir. I loved having you on here. Walt Brown, special guest on The Unstoppables. I'm Bill Woodage. See you next week.